I'm ready for the eclipse. This is the Almost Timely newsletter for the week of April 7th, 2024. Content authenticity statement. 100% of this week's newsletter was generated by me, the human. I thought about using generative AI for the first section, but decided against it. There's a link at the top of the newsletter to learn why this kind of disclosure is important, a good idea, and might be required for anyone doing business in any capacity with the EU in the near future. What's on my mind this week? Generative AI optimization. Eric asked a very interesting question that I think is worth addressing and putting some written content and video content about this in public. Given that at least some consumer behavior will change toward the use of generative AI as a replacement for traditional search, how do you get ahead of the curve? So this is a really good question. It's a really interesting question, right? How can you and I avoid losing what's probably going to be a substantial part of our organic search traffic to generative AI? This is a big topic to tackle, so let's go over the pieces to understand what we might want to do and what advice I would give Eric and you. First, is generative AI-based search a thing? Right, this is something we need to worry about. Yes, it is. There was a recent piece, paywalled. There's a link to it if you have a Wall Street Journal subscription, that cited statistics of 20 to 40% traffic loss from things like Google's search generative experiments and other forms of AI-based summarization, tools like Perplexity, ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. Why? Because in general, the search process today is sort of broken, right? Go to any mainstream publisher's website and you are bombarded with ads and pop-ups and flying things and, punch the monkey and whatever while you're trying to get the information you want. For example, there's a piece of clickbait. I just saw it on just now on one of the sci-fi entertainment sites I occasionally check in on in my Google News reader. And I was sitting there with my phone, like 14 scrolls the page just to get to the useful information, and what tiny little bit of useful information there was. Half of those swipes, half of those pages were ads, right? None of which I can remember. So the ad dollars that the marketer spent on those ads didn't do a whole lot. You spent the money, but I couldn't tell you who was advertising. Now, if I point Perplexity, Gemini, Bing, Copilot, ChatGPT at that URL, I get a one-paragraph summary that doesn't require me to read 7 pages of ads to get to the one sentence of useful information, right? Generative AI-based summarization and content delivery is just a better user experience. You ever go to a website, a recipe website, and you're like, scroll. Okay, this is your boyfriend's cousin's roommate's second, child's dog's best friend recipe. Who cares? Just give me tell me how much sugar I'm putting in this thing. You've had that experience. I've had that experience. Generative AI sidesteps that experience. It's a better user experience. And the more people find out that it's not only possible, but straightforward to get the information you want in a more compact form, a substantially better user experience, and fewer ads, the faster AI-generated search is going to take off. I saw one post on Threads this morning. Someone's like, "Oh yeah, my site traffic's really down. And I earn revenue from ads." And I went to this person's site, and I did not respond to this person publicly because I don't show up at every fight I'm invited to. But this person's site was like 10 pages of ads and pop-ups and this and sponsored by this. I'm like, I don't even know what you're blogging about because there's so many ads. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you are getting penalized by search algorithms. Your site is not a good experience. The second aspect of generative AI-based search that we forget about, because it's just so natural to us now, is the aggregation aspect. When you search for something like best practices for writing case studies, as an example, you get a list of links to check, and you have to click back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, search result to search result to find the information you want. And you have to mentally put this all together. When you use generative AI, all the results are mashed together by the AI model and summarized into one tidy document. You've got the best practices in one document. You don't have to do those mental gymnastics anymore. And that's a huge benefit. That's a huge benefit. It speeds things up tremendously because you don't spend time reading through all those pages. You just get the summarized version. So generative AI-based search is already a thing and it's likely to be more of a thing going forward as long as the user experience is better than traditional search. And publisher-produced content that bombards you with content you didn't want, like tons of ads. Right? There's a whole rabbit hole we could go down about the future of publishing, but probably better time for that elsewhere. So with that understanding, we need to know how generative AI systems get content in them to summarize for us, because if we want to influence that, we better know how it works. Today's tools like ChatGPT or Gemini and Claude, get their information and knowledge from three major sources. Number one, their long-term memory, made of the training data that they've been trained on. Two, their short-term memory, made of the data we provide in our prompts. And three, their retrieval-augmented data that they obtain primarily from search. Okay, tools like Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, and Perplexity have all three systems in play. So how do we influence these systems? Well, influencing a user's prompt, the information that the user provides, is all about brand and mind share. If someone is searching for you by name, if someone's asking ChatGPT for you by name, it's because they know who you are and they want more specific information about you. And ideally, the system knows who you are. If brand building is not a core strategic pillar of your marketing strategy, you have basically lost the plot for modern marketing. I'm sorry to say. Brand is everything, because we live in a world of brand, and we live in a world that is so busy and so distracting that people recall only the things that they have emotional affinity to, emotional importance, and that's what brand is, right? Zay Frank said this way back in 2006. Brand is the emotional aftertaste of a series of experiences, and that statement has never been more true. If your brand is not emotionally memorable in some fashion, people will not remember it. Take, I'm practically licking the third rail here, take any prominent politician in your country, wherever it is you are, right? In office, out of office. Take whoever you don't like, right? Whoever the other person is, or the other party, or the other thing. You have no trouble remembering that, right? You have an emotional reaction like, oh, that guy, or you know what I mean. That is brand, right? Even if it's a negative emotion, you at least still remember who that is, as opposed to who, right? And a lot of the time for our companies, it's the reaction users get is, who? I didn't even know your company did that. How do you know who your company is? Brand is everything. So that's number one. You've got to get this brand marketing really prominent in your marketing. As an amusing aside, I've heard people call this whole process AI engine optimization, search AI optimization, generative engine optimization. These all sound a little silly, but I guess we'll see which one wins. So that's number one. Number two, can we influence training data, the long-term memory of these models? To a degree, yes, but it's neither easy nor fast. Training data for these big AI models comes from a variety of sources. If you look at what model makers like Meta disclose as their training data sets, you will see things like book archives, programming code repositories, and one entity in particular known as Common Crawl. Common Crawl is a nonprofit organization that basically makes copies of the entire public web in text format. This is a massive, massive archive. A single snapshot of the public web, nothing requires logging in, right? Just the public web. It's about 7 petabytes of data. To put that in context, if you took all the text from all the books in the entire New York Public Library, that would work out to about 2.7 terabytes. A single snapshot of the web is 2,500 New York Public Libraries. That is how much text there is on the web. Not images, not sounds and video, just text. 2,500 New York Public Libraries. Now, within Common Crawl is every site that's publicly available, from the most bespoke publications to your drunk uncle's Reddit shitposts and that Blogspot blog that you started in 2003 and you forgot about, right? It's out there somewhere. You're professing your love for the sitcom that was on the air at the time. All that text is ingested by model makers and converted into statistical associations that form the foundation of a language model's long-term memory. Thus, if you wanted to increase the statistical associations in the model for your brand, your name, your key terms, you would have to increase the amount of text in archives like Common Crawl and books and code, etc., by a substantial amount within your industry, within your domain, so that when someone asks a model for B2B marketing ideas in the wastewater processing industry, the statistical associations would be in the model. That means you have to be in tons and tons of text content in public. How would you do that? Well, for starters, you have to publish and make available tons and tons of text content. You should be creating high quality content at high velocity on your site, your blog, your digital media properties. You should be creating podcasts, video, etc., and providing subtitle files with everything. Once you've got your own properties in order and you've got a really strong cadence, the next step is to be everywhere you can be. Say yes to everything you can practically say yes to. Be on any podcast that publishes transcripts, even if the show has like 2 listeners, right? Because again, it's not about the people, it's about the machines. Collab with other creators on YouTube. This is, in some ways, an inversion of normal PR strategy. I used to work at a PR firm. Normal PR strategy is all about getting placements in great publications. Publications get a lot of public attention, big names, big brands, right? PR professionals will talk about publications like Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 publications are those well-known outlets like the New York Times, Asahi Shimbun, Al Jazeera, the Sydney Morning Herald, etc. PR clients want to be in those publications for obvious reasons. They get a lot of attention. There's that halo effect. Oh, we were mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. But in the world of model training, one piece of text has no more weight than another. An article in the East Peoria Evening News has the same weight from a statistical perspective as an article in the New York Times. And there's a good chance of getting the placement in the former, right? In the East Peoria Evening News. It's a lot easier to get an article there than it is in the New York Times. From a language model perspective, you're better off getting 100 easy-to-obtain articles in small publications that are on the web rather than one difficult-to-obtain article in a large publication. Now, that's going to change over time, but the reality right now and for the near term is that model makers are ravenously hungry for any data they can get their hands on. Companies like OpenAI and Meta and stuff, this was in the news this morning. All these companies are vacuuming up data as fast as they can, licensing it, buying it from wherever they can obtain it. There was one story, someone was saying image companies are buying stuff from like Photo Bucket and Imager and all these meme sites just so they have image data to work with. They'll take anything. Side note, there's probably a cottage industry on being a data provider. If you have a good source and you have a lot of it, you could make some money licensing your data to AI companies. So, should we just toss out our content marketing strategy and publish whatever we can, wherever we can? Not so fast. Remember that the long-term memory is just one of the 3 sources that models use. The third source, search data. And this is where traditional SEO strategy still matters. Because if you look at what's happening behind the scenes when we talk to a search-aware model like ChatGPT or Bing or Gemini, part of the process is to consult existing search databases as the model synthesizes results. You can see this, for example, in Microsoft Bing. If you switch it to creative mode on desktop or flip the little GPT-4 switch, as you talk to the GPT-4 model that Bing runs on, you will see it. It's taking your conversation and rewriting it as Bing queries, querying the Bing search catalog and returning search results from the Bing search catalog that the language model then synthesizes into a written summary. In other words, traditional SEO still matters because that language model is being fed partly by search data. If anything, this makes your overall SEO strategy even more important because you want those search-enabled language models to recommend your text for inclusion in its summaries. So this means you should absolutely be consulting Bing Webmaster Tools, which is actually really important now since Bing is the underlying engine for both Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT, as well as Google Search Console, because Google Search, unsurprisingly, is the underlying engine for Google Gemini and its search-powered results. And if rumors are true and Apple is going to make Gemini the default model for these things, then you got to be in both systems, right? You've got to optimize your content. That's optimize your content for each of these systems. Here's the simple reality. Those who are better at content marketing will do better in a generative AI-powered search world. Bigger, small, rich or poor, whoever has the most content out there that's decent quality will win. I say decent quality because model makers are finding out, completely unsurprisingly, that a smaller subset of high quality content leads to better model performance than models that use everything and all the garbage, right? There's a lot of, the internet's a sewer, and a good chunk of the internet's a sewer. And so, not every model is going to use everything. In fact, you'll see references to libraries like C3, which is a subset of Common Crawl that's somewhat curated. There's still a lot of garbage in there, but it's not total trash. This means for content marketers and for SEO folks, but content marketers especially, if you want to win in a generative AI world, you have got to create both high quantity and high quality content. You can't just churn out garbage. You also can't just publish one bespoke piece of content a quarter. Those days are gone. Best isn't enough, and most isn't enough. Your content strategy has to revolve around creating the most best content in your space. Most best content, right? That's a tall order, but if you want to win, that's how you got to do it. You also want to embrace the transmedia content framework, something I've been advocating for a decade now. We have a version over on the Trust Insights website. There's a link in the newsletter called the Video First Transmedia Content Framework. This means creating content in every format you can because you get to double dip, right? This newsletter is a perfect example. Yes, it's text, and that text is published both on my personal website, which I know is in Common Crawl because I checked, and Substack. So I get to double dip just on the text alone in terms of what's in Common Crawl. It's also on LinkedIn. So I get to, for Microsoft's models, because I'm almost certain that data is going to be used by Microsoft, get to double dip there too. But I also, you and I are having this conversation right now in this video or in this audio. If you're listening to this, the video and its subtitles get loaded to YouTube. We know for a fact, beyond contestation, that language models and multimodal models in particular are scraping YouTube like crazy, which is another reason to embrace accessibility, right? If your stuff is accessible, it's easier for models to consume. And these model makers are grabbing caption content, right? So of course I want my captions to mention the things I'm about in my videos, and I load the audio for the video each week into Libsyn as a podcast. Well, guess what happens with podcasts, right? Companies like Google don't offer services like Google Podcasts for fun, right? They don't give it away for free just out of the goodness of their own heart. They want data. They are transcribing those podcasts. And that text data that they transcribe, where do you think that goes? It goes into search results, and it goes into AI models. I'll add one more twist for your content marketing strategy, because this really is about generative AI content marketing strategy. In the content you create, make sure your brand is getting mentioned in it. Make sure your name, your brand, and the terms you want to be known for are making it into each piece of content that gets published. Because when the models ingest this data, they are forming statistical association among all the words in the content. If you've got 1,000 blog posts on the web that are high quality content, but none of them mention your company name, then you've given the model, given model makers 1,000 pieces of great training data. They thank you very much, and you've excluded yourself. Right? You have cut yourself out of your own content. At the very, very least, make sure your main content is injected with boilerplate copy at the end of every piece. Something that says like, this post about content marketing and generative AI first appeared on Christopher Penn's Marketing AI blog. Right? Something like that. So it could be a little thing at the end. As long as it's there, it can get ingested, and those words can find their way, along with the content you've worked so hard on, to be inside the main content that gets ingested by these models, right? If you consume other stuff that I make, you'll hear in content I produce with Katie on the Trust Insights properties. We mention our products, services, our company name, and our major digital properties at the end of every episode. You'll say, hey, thanks for listening to this episode of In-Ear Insights, the Trust Insights podcast, and so on and so forth. You will hear that. It's not just because we're narcissists, we like hearing our own names. It's because it's partly for the humans, but partly for the machines ingesting all that content. No matter what we're talking about on the In-Ear Insights podcast, it ends with us name-checking the company so that the content gets incorporated into the text. Our name gets incorporated into the training data, that we know when machines vacuum the stuff up, our names are going to be in there associated with our topics. That goes into the language model, and it goes into search results. You will see this on our live stream, other content. You'll see it in the newsletter. Again, it's not just narcissism. This is by design. Since 2020, we have known this has been a thing, to get your stuff out there. There's a reason why I publish as much content as I do, and why it is I provide text for everything is because I'm trying to influence these models. There is one final power tip for jumpstarting the process, but that is behind the paywall in the Generative AI for Marketers course. It is the course on the lesson on public relations. So if you are enrolled in that course, go watch that segment again, because I give you my power tip for how to get content distributed rapidly. All right, so let's summarize. Not by AI. Yes, AI-enabled search is a thing, and it's probably going to become more of a thing because it's a better user experience. It's easier, it's faster, and people like better, faster, and easier. Get ready for this change by being everywhere. Say yes to everything you can. Make content in as many formats as you can so that multimodal models train on it, and you get to double dip as much as you can. Make sure you're mentioning yourself in all your content somehow, even if it's not a big, obnoxious, hey, you're listening to, make sure it's in there somewhere. And keep investing in SEO, because it's not going anywhere, because we are seeing very clearly these models that are search enabled are good experiences, and that has to come from good search results. So that's my suggestions. I'd love to hear what you think. What's your AI-enabled search strategy? What is your AI-enabled content marketing strategy? Say hi on wherever it's that you're watching or listening to this, and let me know. All right, what else happened this week? Did a piece on curation as the new creation, which is was a lot of fun to discuss and go over. Also had a piece on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, as the secret AI weapon that you might want to take a look at. Oh, and also a piece on preparing your business for AI agents. So there was a lot of fun with that. We also did a good live stream this week on using generative AI to audit your content marketing. So go check that out. A lot of content marketing this week. Let's see. Jobs this week. We have Chief Marketing Officer at Loan Factory, Director of E-commerce and Digital Marketing at Attachments King, Director of Marketing at Drafted, Head of Marketing at Inspire AI, Marketing Data Analyst at Sunweb Group, Marketing Director at New Group, Marketing Director at Psych Plus, Marketing Director at Commando LLC, Optimization Consultant at Eclipse Group Solutions, Product Analyst 3 at Cars Commerce, and Senior Digital Marketing Data Analyst at Jack Henry. A lot of marketing director positions this week. In other news, we have stuff on making Facebook Reels on your desktop from my friend Mari Smith, which was probably useful if you're in that space. Although I haven't noticed you can just post from Instagram too. Doing content audits, revisiting video SEO tactics. People asking if AI is going to replace SEO specialists. No, they're not. Perplexity AI is showing strong growth. People are using AI-enabled search, huge surprise. Prioritizing responsible AI, from our friends over at IBM. And forecasts for this hurricane season are suggesting it's going to be a wickedly bad one because of high ocean temperatures, high sea surface temperatures, which if you follow any of the climate data sites, not blogs and news articles, but actual data, it's alarming. It's like, whoa, what's going on there? Also, if you are going to view the eclipse, PSA, make sure you have some good eye protection. This is a welding mask with a DIN 13 piece of glass. It's meant for like arc welding. So it is DIN 13 is the minimum safety glass. I got a welding mask instead of the little glasses because apparently there's issues with how credible the glasses are online that they're being sold. And B, this is a little more durable. It's going to stick around. And if I ever do want to weld something, now I've got a welding helmet. Upcoming events. I'll be at the Society for Marketing and Professional Services here in Boston at the end of April, followed by the national event. I'm doing a 2-day workshop in May in Los Angeles. I'll be at the Australian Food and Grocery Council in Melbourne in May, Marketing AI Conference in Cleveland in September, and the Marketing Process B2B Forum in Boston in November. Actually, I need to change that in the newsletter because it is late this year. I'll be doing a workshop with Katie on building the data-driven, generative AI-powered customer journey, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then I'm going to be doing a session on prompt engineering for B2B marketers. I'm going to show probably 4 or 5 techniques that folks need to know on things like ideal customer profile building, etc. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. That is the news for this week. Thank you for being here. As always, love to hear your thoughts about generative AI and your content marketing strategy and generative AI optimization. So let me know what you think. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to know when new videos are available, hit the bell button to be notified as soon as new content is live.